What's up you guys, welcome back to another Reddit reading video. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than usual because I've never done this before. Today we'll be sorting by top of all time and be reading the #1 story on r/ProRevenge. The #1 story upvoted by everyone deciding that is on the sub. Decided that this is the #1 best revenge story that is out there. It's the best revenge story on Reddit right now. So this better absolutely blow my socks off. I better be blasted out of this time zone. I'm just kidding. I don't want to hold it that high standards, but this should be really good. If you guys have any suggestions for stuff that you want me to go over, just let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video throughout. Let's get into the video. r/ProRevenge. Coworker tried to get me fired over breast implants, so I pulled a reverse Uno card. 4 years ago now, when I was 24, my mom died of breast cancer, and as both of my grandmothers had also died of it, I saw a specialist for a screening. I found out I had some cells in one of my breasts that could have turned cancerous at any given moment. I was told I have a few options. 1. I could have regular screenings every 3 to 4 months until it does develop into cancer. I was told that the risk of cells becoming cancerous was very high due to the family history, but it could also potentially never could turn, so I'd just be getting these screenings for no reason. 2. I could get a single mastectomy on one breast with the bad cells, but they need to keep an eye on the other one, so I'd still need regular checkups for the other breast. 3. I could get a bilateral mastectomy and remove all my breast tissue, basically eliminating the risk. I went in for the bilateral mastectomy. It was admittedly the most drastic option, but after seeing what cancer did to my mom and grandmothers, I didn't want to risk it. I was warned about scarring, but told it should be fairly minor. It wasn't, and I was left with 2 huge pink jagged scars on either side of my chest, each about 1 inch long and 1/2 inch wide, and it caused me to go into severe depression, where it got to the stage of me not even leaving my flat because I didn't want people to see me, throwing out my mirrors and getting physically sick looking at myself. I went to a therapist who suggested a plastic surgeon. The therapist said they'd never normally do it, but it was clearly something I was struggling with, and I might never get over it, and the therapist could see I was struggling with it. Although, I'll admit, the therapist did send me to ask about scar reduction. The plastic surgeon suggested a cream, a laser, or implants. The cream didn't work, and the lasers were both expensive and risky, so I went with the implants. My natural boobs were an F cup, so I went with a slightly smaller double D. Since my mental health was improved, and I feel a lot better about the way I look. My confidence has gone up, and as my self-esteem. I know I shouldn't put so much into my appearance, but I wasn't exaggerating about these scars. Huge, bright pink, jagged, raised, just awful to look at, and I hated seeing myself. And they are now nicely hidden away, and you could barely feel them. In the present day, I'm 28 years old, and working in an office. I'm doing a lot better than I was. My coworker, Jill, found out that I had a boob job, but not about the cancer thing. When myself and my friend from years before the mastectomy were planning a holiday, and she made a joke about me going on a plane with my implants, and Jill overheard. By the end of the day, the entire office knew I had a boob job, but not why, and half a dozen people confirmed that Jill had told them. Over the next few months, Jill made many jokes and comments about my chest to coworkers when I was in earshot, at one point saying I had more plastic than Barbie, and calling me fake in 2 ways. I didn't hear this one myself, but my friend in the office told me that Jill had at one point referred to me as sack of silicone. I don't care what her problem was exactly, but at one point she mentioned the NHS, so I'll assume Jill thought I had got my tits done for free on taxpayer money. I had gotten the mastectomy on NHS, but gone private for the therapy and implants. I asked her to stop more than once, but unfortunately the places I had talked to her were places like the lift and the woman's bathroom, where there weren't any cameras, and Jill just kept making comments no matter how often I asked her not to. I wouldn't say it was every single day, but I heard at least 3 comments per week for 3 months. I hit my breaking point when me, Jill, and a few other coworkers were having lunch. I referred to something as being shallow, and Jill said, "You know all about being shallow," while gesturing to my chest. I snapped. I said, "Do you know why I have these? A few years ago, the doctors found potentially cancerous cells in my breast tissue. I was advised to get a mastectomy and was left with huge ugly scars on my chest. I went to see a therapist who sent me to a cosmetic surgeon who advised me to get implants to hide my scars. And I did, just so I could look at myself in the mirror without crying. So maybe next time you want to judge someone for having cosmetic surgery, you should ask them why they had it first." And feeling like that was the mic drop moment, I picked up my food and left. For the rest of the day, I had about 1/3 of the office come up to me and offer support, and the rest tell me that Jill was just joking around and I was being a B. I replied that Jill was being a B long before I was. I got an email from HR saying they wanted to talk to me the following day, and when I called for clarification, they mentioned a hostile work environment. This is apparently an American term and holds little weight in England, but it's what was said over the phone. I knew the person who signed off on the email and I'd spoken to. Her name was Debbie, and she was Jill's friend in HR, so I was fairly confident who had reported me. I realized that if she was already being sent to HR, I needed as much as ammunition as possible, so I went about collecting information. As Debbie had dealt with me so far, it was safe to assume she would be the person reviewing the complaint with me. And if that was true, I was screwed. However, I vaguely remember a section of complaints that was in my contract when I first signed with the company. I flicked through the contract and there was a part in complaint section that said I was contractually allowed to request a change of reviewer if I felt my allocated reviewer was biased. It was called an impartial overseer. I photocopied the page and highlighted that part. When I messaged the people who had offered their support over Facebook and said basically, HR have asked to see me. Do you remember Jill insulting me to your face, or are you willing to write and sign something saying that you have heard and when? Not everyone was willing to help, as Jill was somewhat feared in the office due to her befriending HR and management, but about 20 people were willing to help me. I guessed roughly when I asked Jill to stop previously. The 4 asks were over the last few months. Some timings were easy to guess as they'd happened on my break or when I first arrived at work. And I wrote them all down, along with a rough time of when the lunchroom confrontation happened and a list of names who was there for the lunchroom confrontation. I got to work slightly early the next morning. I went around everyone who had messaged me, and most of them managed to give me a printed and signed letter. Some did manage to write one, but no big deal. This isn't the exact words, as there's 16 letters to sum up here, but the gist was, my name is, then their name. I work with Jill, an OP. On the date and time approximately, I spoke with Jill, during which she referred to OP as an insult. I felt as it was inappropriate, as it directly related to OP's appearance, and I'm willing to go on record further to establish that Jill has been discussing OP in the workplace in the same manner for 3 months now, causing me discomfort and creating what I feel is a hostile work environment. Signed, their name. I wound up with about 16 letters, all from different people, and one of them was in the lunchroom for my conversation with Jill. Some have even bullet pointed a list of everything Jill had said to them about me or other people. As it turns out, Jill has an issue with a lot of people's appearance. She apparently made comments about one coworker's weight and something anti-Semitic about different coworkers' nose, all of which were put into these letters. There were about 45 people in the office, so while 16 wasn't a majority, it was still a decent amount. The letters weren't hugely long, most were only a paragraph, but they had all the necessary information. I was asked to come to HR at 10 a.m. I took the letters from my coworkers, then photocopied a page of my contract, and my dates and times in my little folder with me. I got there, and Debbie was the one overseeing the interview. She got up from her desk, ready to lead me into another room. I immediately turned to the HR worker that was currently there and said, "So is my meeting with you, then?" Debbie said, "No, you're with me." I replied that this wouldn't sit well with me, as my contract states I have a right to an impartial overseer. And as I said this, I took the contract page out of my folder. Debbie read it. I wouldn't let her take the paper when there was a shredder so close by, and said she could be impartial. I replied that I really don't mean to be a pain, but it had to be on good authority that the person on the other end of this complaint is her friend, and my contract does say I'm allowed an impartial overseer. Debbie stomped off to get the supervisor. Supervisor asked how I know she can't be impartial, and I tell her that I have it on good authority that the Jill, who was on the other end of this complaint, is a close friend with Debbie. He asked Debbie if this was true, to which she only said, "I can be impartial." Supervisor took a deep breath, asked the other HR rep to come with him, and the 4 of us all went to review the complaint. I thanked them for being so accommodating. I was worried I'd annoy them. Debbie took out the complaint, and all 3 of them went through it with me. Debbie looked homicidal the whole time that the interview was happening, as she had clearly anticipated firing me, or at least recommending me be fired. The interview went something like this. It took over half an hour, and they kept asking me the same question, but phrasing it in different ways. So this is a really drastically condensed version. Question: you said outside you think Jill reported you. Why is this? Answer: Jill has had an issue with me for about 3 months now. Question: why didn't you come to us when you realized Jill had an issue? Answer: because I had no issue with her. Question: what issue does Jill have with you? Answer: 4 years ago, a specialist identified potentially cancerous cells in my breast tissue. I had surgery to remove my breast tissue, thereby removing the cells and the risk. After the surgery, I was left with large scars on my chest and went to a therapist for low self-esteem and depression. The therapist suggested a plastic surgeon who suggested breast implants to cover those scars. All of this is in my medical history, which you have a copy of in file, and my full permission to review. Jill found out about my breast implants, but didn't know about the cancer. Jill had a problem with my breast implants, and then decided to communicate this problem with our coworkers. Question: why do you feel this is true? Answer: here's 16 signed statements from all different coworkers, all testifying that Jill told the entire office I had breast implants on the day she found out, and has since made comments about these implants frequently. They have quotes of what Jill said to them about it in rough dates and times. Question: rough dates and times? Answer: no one knew this would be escalated to such an extent, so no one really took notes as of when it happened. Question: what event or events do you think directly led to this complaint of harassment? Answer: for the harassment, for me, harassment began when Jill told everyone about my breast implants without my consent. But as for the complaint against me, it would probably be what happened about yesterday in the lunchroom. Jill made a comment about me being shallow while gesturing to my breast, and I replied by giving her an abridged version of my relevant medical history and ending with a comment about the importance of getting the full story. There were cameras in the lunchroom, so I'm sure you'll be able to find that conversation. I'll admit, I could have handled the situation better, but after 3 months, I felt I had to put my foot down. Here's a list of the names of people who were also present. There were 6 people at the table, including myself and Jill. One of these people is also in those letters and has written their account of the conversation and signed it. Question: had you had a conversation with Jill prior to this regarding her comments about you? Answer: several, spaced out over the last 3 months. Each time I communicated with her, I felt uncomfortable and upset at these comments and would appreciate if they were to stop. Question: to your knowledge, was Jill made aware of your former cancer at any point in time? Answer: no, it wasn't mentioned in the conversation with my friends when she overheard, and I didn't tell her because frankly, it's none of her business, and I did not feel the need to detail my medical history to my coworker in order to avoid further sexual harassment. Supervisor stands up and says, well, I think we're done here. He shakes my hand and sends me back to my desk, saying I'd hear from them after they reviewed the evidence, letters, CCTV, medical history, and anything they had already, and made a decision on the case. I got back to my desk, pulled up my CV, and prepared to start the job search again. About an hour goes by, then the person who wrote the letter and was there for the lunchroom conversation gets called to the meeting with HR. They come back 10-ish minutes later. The other people who were also there for the lunchroom conversation got called in one by one, except Jill. All of them were gone for about 10 minutes, then come back, find a coworker, say that the HR wants to see them. Then, the people who wrote the letters but weren't there yesterday are also called in one by one, and each are gone for about 10 minutes each, some longer, some shorter. By about 3:30, it looks like everyone who wrote the letter or was there in the lunchroom had been interviewed. Then, finally, Jill gets called in. She's gone for about 30 minutes and comes back fuming. She glares at me while I work, but I ignore her. 4:30ish, Jill gets called into HR again. 5 p.m. rolls around. Everyone is either leaving or getting ready to leave. When Jill storms back into the office, she glares at me the whole time, packs up her desk. She starts to tell everyone who will listen to her that she got fired before shoving her face into the lift. An email comes from HR. My case is closed. Edit: I just wanted to add that regardless of my reasons for getting implants, it still should not have been harassed over them. It happened to be relevant here because it made Jill look like a real dick, which should probably be why she reported me. The top comment says, paper trails are often the undoing of petty, vindictive people. I've seen several times in my life providing said paper trail usually, and it's always satisfying. This one was exceptionally satisfying. Bonus, now you can tell people that your breasts are so magnificent they get people fired. I mean, if you want to. Wow, that is a good story. I can't believe they fired her so quickly. By the end of the day, boom, she was gone. Like, what really changed everything was her going in and finding where she could have someone impartial to look over the situation and actually bringing the supervisor and another HR rep to come in there. And the thing is, she pretty much fired herself. Jill fired herself because she's the one that put in the complaint that got her fired. What a genius. It's more like an idiot revenge. She got revenge on herself somehow. But bravo to her. That probably feels like such a big win in the office. Imagine having to work by someone that is always commenting on your appearance and feeling so down about that. And now, boom, they're gone. And you could finally work in peace. I wonder if every one of those people like told the truth when we went there about the lunchroom, or if they were like Jail's friend and some of them were like, I never heard that happen. I will say this is a 9 out of 10. My favorite story ever still, I can't top this one, is the one I read like a month or two ago about that lady that was in the school or whatever, and she was like a teacher. That was the best revenge of all time. I'm not sure if anything is ever gonna replace that. She got an entire school shut down and a bunch of people she hated fired and stuff. This though is still a very good story. There's a reason why it has so much upvotes. I don't know if that's just for boobs or because, you know, it's good. Anyways, I really hope you guys enjoyed the #1 story on r/ProRevenge. If any story ever tops this, I will read that. If you want me to read the top stories on any other sub, just let me know down below in the comments. I take suggestions all the time. Remember at the beginning of the video, I said don't forget to like and subscribe. If you did that, thank you. That helps out a lot. I'm not sure how much because I'm still kind of new at this, but thank you. If you like r/ProRevenge stories, up here or in the bio, I have linked the playlist for r/ProRevenge if you want to hear those stories. Thank you guys so much for watching, and goodbye, my lovelies.